So in my long-standing historic murders of Portland series, as the name denotes, I cover a lot of old murder cases that happened in Portland. Some of them are, more manslaughter, but they're cases where someone killed somebody. And for the most part, people kind of equate that with murder cases, and I wanted the series to be kind of all-encompassing. But that series obviously delves into cases wherein someone has killed somebody else. But what about all of the instances out there where people have wanted to kill someone and possibly had the opportunity to kill someone, but something happened to prevent it from happening, but it came ever so close to happening? What about those cases? One of those will be brought to you today. It is July 14th, 2021. New day, new story. But before we get to that, the sirens are going off. There's always sirens going off in this area. What am I talking about? Before we get to today's video, anywho, remember, as always, to like, share, subscribe, hit up my Patreon if you want to help support me that way. I'm trying to post there multiple times a week, a lot of extra content you can only get access to if you become a Patreon supporter today. The link to that is in the description with this video, as well as the links to my Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Reddit subreddit pages. So all that said, let's get to today's story. So we got a fella here. I'm gonna say his name was Sam Kubuis. His last name was spelled Kubuis. I get almost kind of a French vibe from that. I could be totally wrong, but it sounds like his name would have been Kubuis. And this guy's in his early 30s. He's recently been separated from his wife, and like most men of that time, kind of can't handle it and is obsessively kind of trying and hoping to get her back. Not because, probably he loves her all that much, but it's just like, he's a man and you're his wife, and what the hey, women are second-class citizens anyway, right? So, come back to me. It's embarrassing to me. It's shameful to me to be one of these guys whose women walked out on him. That's the kind of ongoing rhetoric, which you wonder why these women leave these types of men and these men have such a hard time getting them back. Yeah, there's no logical break there at all. So I'm assuming this guy was just another in a line of dudes who didn't really want his wife back because he really loved her all that much, but because he was ashamed of being one of these guys whose wives left him. It's a kick to the old ego. So he contacts his ex-wife's family in Medford. He had reason to believe that after they broke up, she left Portland, headed down to Medford where most of her family lived. And as the article I read on this case denotes, it's a very sinister kind of vibe. Was he contacts the family, they tell her, she's not down here with us. Then he got like an intuition as to where she probably was, presuming she was still living in the city of Portland. So it's almost like he'd just been, I can't say, there's stalkery vibes from that, like, oh, she's not in Medford. Well, I know exactly where she is. But obviously he didn't know that she was in Portland for a fact, so he couldn't have been stalking her, because then he would know where she was. It was just a very sinister vibe that the article gave off, expressing this guy's feelings in that way, like, she's not in Medford, huh? So Mr. Kubuis travels to they say a row of houses along what is now Northwest 16th and Everett, which may not even exist anymore. I know that's kind of generally where I-405 goes through, and they obliterated, pretty good number of houses, almost like block and a half, 2 block stretch when they put that freeway in. If anything, it's probably would have been, if that intersection even still exists, it would be just west, to the west side of the I-405 freeway. So presumably on Mr. Kubuis' part, his ex-wife is living in one of these houses along, or at least around the intersection of 16th and Everett. So Mr. Kabui, who was a bootblack by trade, which I only say that because I love that old-timey term, someone walks up to me and is like, Steve, what's your, what line of business are you in? I'm a bootblack. I don't know, it's one of those old-timey terms that makes me laugh. So he shows up there, but he doesn't go up to the houses, you know, knocking on them, hey, honey, are you here, you know? He's loitering in some thick, dense brush that's, I guess, standing between the homes and the street. So he's kind of hiding out there. It's very odd. It's very menacing. Like he's hiding out. Now, fortunately, someone notices him just loitering in the bushes, probably, you know, poking his head out from time to time to see if anything's going on. It's like, why, if he just wants to find his ex-wife and talk things over with her again, why doesn't he just go up to these houses, knock on the door till he gets to the right one and be like, hey, can we talk? Well, there's potentially a very clear reason why, you know, he wasn't doing what he was doing. So the police are called. There's this, you know, kind of oddball guy that just showed up on the block, and he's hiding in the brush, kind of poking his head out from time to time, like, what the heck, like, what is this guy's deal? So authorities show up. He's probably like, oh crap, there's the cops, and, you know, what's he gonna say? And here's Mr. Kabui's actual explanation for the events that led up to him being there suspiciously. He claimed he's at home. He's already contacted Medford. They've said she's not here. He's at home and he's shaving himself. He's looking in the mirror, shaving himself, and all of a sudden the light bulb goes off. And this is when he has this realization, I think I know where she is. In the middle of shaving. This is his explanation, which sounds just not improbable, but a little off, a little bizarre. Now, why would this guy come up with a story like that if it's not true? Well, it could be because when the police showed up, Mr. Kabui was standing outside of potentially where his wife was, and he had a razor in his possession. So let's just pretend for like 15 seconds that we remotely believe the gobbledygook being fed out by this jackass. What are we to believe? Did the guy just, like, the moment, like, he got that thought hit him about where his wife could be, he just stopped and he ran out of the house with his razor? Did he finish the job and tuck it into his pocket? Just like, you're the thing that sparked this to me, so I guess I'm gonna bring you along. You're a lucky razor. Like, did he bring it along with him so he could finish shaving along the way and look nice and presentable for his ex? Did he stick it in a pocket? Was he just walking down the street with the razor in his hand? Like, hello, I'm a man with a razor. You can call me Razor Man. It makes no damn sense. Why in God's name would anybody of sound mind, even when that thought hits your mind, 16th and Everett, finish shaving, put the razor down, and then leave? You don't bring the razor with you. Now, of course, who's honestly going to believe this story anyway? I certainly don't believe it. The much more logical inference is that this guy was feeding the authorities a bunch of crap. And the reality was he was bringing a potential weapon with him when he had a confrontation with his ex. It was extreme, you know, it happens today, but it was extremely common back in the day that if your ex rejected you enough times, there was kind of that one last, this is your last chance to abide by my rules or wishes or what have you. And if they say no one more time, then you kill them. A lot of men did that. Not just to exes, they did that to women that they just become obsessed and infatuated with, who never wanted them and were never with them to begin with. So it happens. Happened and happens. So I wholeheartedly think that guy brought a weapon, and if he wasn't intending on either asking his ex for one more chance and then killing her after, or just going in and threatening her with a weapon, whatever the circumstances were, I think he brought that to, at the very least, threaten his ex. Be like, I have a razor. People killed people a lot though, because the razors were big back then. You'd go like, they were like switchblades. You'd go like that and the blade would come up. So, you know, you think of like what we shave, little razor blades that we shave with today, and you're like, that's not, I mean, you can scratch someone, you know, and cut them up, but the razors back then were much more deadly. And that's why they were more used by people. And you could close them up and, you know, put them in your pocket, and nobody would know you had them on you till you got where you wanted to use it. So I wholeheartedly think this guy was going there to at least threaten his ex, and if not, possibly actually kill her. But somebody saw him acting suspicious in those bushes and called the police, and he was arrested. And I don't really know. The article's a little deceptive because it says the guy was taken to prison, but this is like an article written the next morning, so this is within probably, you know, 15, 20 hours of this happening. So I don't think he was taken off to prison yet. Like, I'm wondering if they even, like, you have to take this seriously considering the circumstances surrounding this, but did this guy actually go off to prison? Was he actually, like, indicted on attempted murder or something like that? It seems like it would be a little bit difficult to do that because, hey, maybe this guy's just a weirdo who travels with a razor. But, you know, he never even got to the door. The article never stipulates whether his wife was actually at this location or not. Even that's not stipulated. It's more like he presumed she would be there. But whatever the circumstances, the police showed up and this guy's, whatever his motives were, they were stopped immediately. It reminds me of a story. I think I've mentioned this maybe in a therapy walk. I don't know. But back in the 90s, my mom would take the bus to work. And there was a guy that would get on the bus with his dog. And, you know, the dog just sat there. Chill, you know, through every stop. And one day, this one guy came to get on the bus, and the dog started barking and barking and yapping and snapping at the guy, and he wouldn't let him get on. And the bus driver, I swear, said like, hey, you know, I think this guy and his dog have been riding this particular guy's bus for a long time. The guy was like, hey, sorry, the dog says you can't come on. And he closed the door and didn't pick up this passenger. It was discovered a little while later, because my mom saw the guy. Like, she saw his face and everything trying to get on the bus. And then later on found out on the news that this guy was actually on his way to his ex-girlfriend's house, kind of like this story, to kill her, essentially. And this dog just sensed something was wrong with this guy and would not let him get on the bus. And that apparently was like the only time, all these times that my mom took the bus with this guy and his dog, that was the only time the dog ever snapped at anyone. So, you know, in that case, the dog kind of saved this guy's ex-girlfriend's life. In our story, you know, it's a little less interesting. The police came along and potentially prevented a guy's wife from the ex being killed. Hell yeah, brother. So good on that. Whatever the circumstances were, nobody died. This is one of those stories where maybe murder was just waiting right around the corner, but it didn't quite happen. Thanks to the sharp eye of someone living on that street and the police coming and snatching that guy up real quick. So it's a happy ending considering the circumstances. What more can you ask for? And that is today's story. So as always, I'd like to thank you so much for stopping by, giving the video a watch, supporting this series, supporting the channel, supporting me. And if you haven't done it yet, new to the channel, what have you, remember to like, share, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet and you like what I'm doing. Hit up my Patreon. Also, again, I'm posting a lot of extra stuff there that you can only get to if you become a Patreon supporter today. Even if you only donate $1, you'll have access to all that stuff. And the link to the Patreon, again, is in the description with this video, as well as the links to my Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Reddit subreddit pages. All that said, that is a beaming hot sun landed on me. It's been Steve the Amateur Historian, and I'll see you tomorrow.